Perfect. So just one more thing on the initial Ashi Garami position. Our partner can always do that litmus test where once I have that initial bite, right, with no hands, my partner can move back, and I should be able to stay nice and glued to him. In fact, that's going to set up some of our techniques later today. Okay? The first technique we're going to talk about is hitting the shin to shin sweep and using that to set up our straight ankle lock. We're going to talk about heel hooks later on, but the way that we're going to divide this seminar today is starting initially on the straight Ashi Garami position and then moving into the cross Ashi, which I'm going to explain shortly. Okay? Starting out with the 5 principles of leg locks. Okay? This is what's allowed us, is going to guide all of our techniques today. It's great to have techniques, but we want to understand principles and concepts that allow us to replicate these techniques in the moment. Because you can memorize and regurgitate techniques, but if something doesn't go your way, you want to have pathways in your brain that allow you to solve the problems in the moment, right? So if you're only used to being able to solve for one specific technique, you can be very limited if your partner doesn't do what you're expecting. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is inside position, okay? If I want to be able to hit a leg lock on my partner, on my opponent, I need to be able to occupy and control the inside space between my opponent's legs, okay? So if I have, for example, a De La Hiva position where my leg is on the outside of Riley, it's impossible for me to hit a leg lock. There's no way of me being able to get in. But when I have both of my legs on the inside, that's what allows me to start controlling Riley and getting into that initial Ashi Garami position, okay? I have to always think about keeping my legs in between my opponent's legs. The second principle that's going to guide us today is that of kazushi. Kazushi is a Japanese phrase. It comes from judo, which means to off balance. What's really important is that we get our opponent's hands on the mat. Does anybody know why we want our opponent's hands on the mat when we're attacking leg locks? Can't defend, that's good.
Makes their legs light.
Exactly, right? Makes their legs lighter. If I'm trying to pull Riley into me, right, it's difficult. He's got a heavy base, especially if you have a heavier opponent. But if I can pull his hands on the mat first, it makes his legs very light, and I can start getting inside those leg entanglements, okay? So kazushi is very important. Next is that of positions of control. I want you to think about leg locks and leg positions as if you would knee on belly, side control, mount, and back. There's a specific hierarchy of these pins where there's a progression of control. If I have knee on belly, it's a good position, it's a good pin. But if I can move to side control, there's even more control. Mount, even more control. I get to the back, even more control. When we have an Ashi Garami, and I knock my opponent down, okay, I have an initial position, okay, which gets tighter with each progressing technique. And where we want to actually end up, the final phase here, the final position of control, is this leg lace Ashi Garami, where we're controlling both of our opponent's legs. This leads directly into the fourth principle, double trouble, okay? The idea is that I always want to control both of my opponent's legs instead of just one. There's going to be specific cases where you can only just control a single leg, but if I can control two, it's a lot more advantageous. Why? Because very much like shackling the legs of a prisoner, right? If we have any prison guards in here, Riley can't move. If Riley tries to move and escape this position, I'm controlling both legs, he can't do anything. If I lose that second leg and he starts turning out and standing up, it's a lot harder, right, for me to be able to control it. And then the last is, of course, position before submission. Something that I've seen a lot at this gym, at other gyms. People see an ankle lock or a heel hook or a knee bar, and all they think about is trying to hit the move and they can't get it. That's because they're thinking about submission before position. We always want to have tight control over our partner before we initiate anything. I'm always thinking about reinforcing and making adjustments to make sure my position of control is as tight as possible. The submission is a consequence of good control, okay? Not the result. So for our first technique, what we're gonna do, Riley's gonna stand up, and Riley's gonna step into this inside space, okay? Riley knows that he needs to be able to occupy the space between my legs. So he's gonna step in, and he's looking for a knee cut, a knee slide, maybe a back step pass. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hook my wrist behind his calf. I'm gonna take a small butt scoop backwards and put my shin in front of Riley's shin. This is called a shin to shin guard. And what we've just done is we've retaken that inside control, okay? Both of our feet now occupy the space between Riley's legs. Now, getting into position, we want to get Riley's hands on the mat. So I'm going to put my bar hand back, and I'm going to use my back muscles to pull Riley forward, getting his hands on the mat. This is lighten his legs, where I can now fall back, I lift his leg up, I kick through, and I can get into my initial Ashi Garami position here. Notice that I have control over both of his legs. Double trouble, okay? I need to control that second leg if I want to make this sweep work. I'm making adjustments the whole time, making sure I've got a good bite. My knee is touching the heel. When I'm ready to sweep, I'm going to lift my hips and I'm going to twist Riley towards 10 o'clock and hit the sweep. Okay. Once we get here, I'm going to scoop on that second leg. And this is going to be our first technique. Okay. I just want you guys to pause here. We're going to move into a submission after this. I just want to get the initial twist sweep. So one more time. Usually when I start trying to go for the sweep, that's when. So he steps inside, I cup the calf, scoop back, shin to shin, I pull Riley forward. That's when I grab the second leg, when I hit the kazushi here. I'm gonna kick my leg back, I get that initial Ashi Garami position, and then I use both legs to hit my twist. I scoop, reinforce. Notice I have almost like a guillotine on both legs, controlling both of his legs. Any questions? You guys want to see it one more time? Okay. So I'm in the seated guard. Riley steps in, shin to shin, get nice and tight. Pull him forward for the kazushi. Get into that initial Ashi Garami position. I have both legs, twist. Okay, let's go around with this. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So we started out, my partner steps in, I get that grip, shin to shin, I pull him forward, Ashi Garami, get the bite, down with the twist sweep, and control. Okay? Once I get in this position, first thing I always want to do, position before submission. I always need to check myself. I don't want to just start going for a submission right off the bat. You guys want to come around, you can see. This is more important. So when we're in position, a couple of things that I notice. You don't have a nice bite here. Just the impact of the sweep, hitting the breakdown of the hip on the mat. It's loosened some things up. And also look at the position of my hips. I always want to make sure my hips are as close to my partner's hips as possible. Okay? So once I've broken my partner down to a hip to complete the sweep, I want to reinforce my position here, typically by grabbing the knee, or if I just want to keep good control, and I scoot in closer and I reinforce that bite. Okay? Before I go for any kind of submission, I'm worried about position first. Okay? Once I've got that built, now we're going to look at the straight ankle lock. A lot of people make the mistake with the straight ankle lock of thinking, just loosen this up here, that it's all about lifting up and trying to break the ankle here. It's not what we're trying to do. What actually finishes the straight ankle lock is actually about pulling the toes back. Okay? If you're doing this right, it'll feel like a lot of pressure right around this area as well as here. Okay? So again, not trying to break an ankle, I'm putting pressure around the toes, which will make that creates a lot of pain for a partner and they'll tap out. Okay? So once I've got that position and landed, first thing I'm going to do is instead of trying to grip my own hand and start lifting, instead what I do is I put my hand on the mat. I use that to to lift myself up. I hike my wrist up towards my chest, and I start putting my shoulder behind my own body. I'm not doing this. I put pressure on it. Okay? What I want is this. Rather than okay, we're doing that's a good angle. That's a good angle. Don't forget, we can still lift and finish. Okay? But I got that initial bite. Okay? Notice the blade of my wrist is underneath this ankle here. I use my free hand, put it on the mat. I lift, I hike this up towards my chest, and I put my shoulder behind me. He's already tapping it. Can you see that? Yeah. So this should feel like a lot of pressure on this foot right now. I still have room now to grip my wrist. Okay. We're doing this right. This is, it's ironic that this is a white belt legal move. This will work at all levels of the game, right? Blue, purple, brown, black. It's an awesome, awesome submission. It's very tight. So one more time. You guys can go just from the submission if you want, or if you want to rep up the whole thing, Riley steps in. Before we go out and break into our groups here, I want to talk about one more thing. Once we have, let's just turn this way. Once we have that grip and we have our Ashi Garami position, a very common response that we get from opponents, from our partners, is they're going to push the heel off their hip and start driving. Okay? What happens now is it's difficult for me to finish. Why? Because he has freedom of hips here. Can't control his hip anymore. So what we're going to do to preemptively or to counter his counter, we could initially bring our leg over, step over and triangle our legs. Now if Riley tries to break that off, he can't. Okay? But sometimes the speed of the moment, we want to start attacking that submission right away instead of taking the extra step to bring the leg over. What I prefer to do instead is to counter his counter. So, if we get to a position here where Riley starts to break that open, instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my outside leg, hook it as a butterfly hook behind his leg here. Then my other leg comes over, and I can still attack that submission. Okay? Key points to remember, again, shoulder, just like the first one, goes behind my back, not onto the mat, behind my back. And then if he pops that off, I hook, just like a butterfly hook, over the top, and now I finish the exact same way. In fact, it might need to be a little bit tighter. Just that. Any questions, guys? Yes.
If he's controlling, when you get the butterfly, if he's controlling the other leg, can you still finish just with the butterfly hook?
You probably could, depending on the quality of your opponent. If I just get this and finish, maybe, but you can still pop over there, which is why Michael Basami will use this move a lot, right? Because it's just so tight. Once I get the butterfly hook in and the foot to the outside, I mean, I can go completely belly down.
Maybe it's like a reserve or a reap with it?
No, so a reap, which we'll talk about in the next move, is when my outside leg cuts across the center line.
You're back heeling with the other foot, or you just block?
It's more of a block.
Okay.
Back heeling is crucial for the heel hook. Straight ankle lock, I'm not actually putting pressure on the knee, so I don't have to reinforce it as much. It's more about creating a breakage by putting pressure this way. It's almost like a toe hold. Any other questions? Okay, 1, 2, 3. There we go. Yeah, so if you just take away this one technique, that's definitely going to be worth your money right there. Something just to keep in mind with the submission, okay? You're probably, this is most, every time I teach this move to someone, usually what I find is they're just being too nice with it. And what happens is they start going in increments. which he kind of gets, acclimated to the increase of pressure each time. In competition, I'm going in one motion. So as I lift my hips, I hike my wrist up towards my chest as high as possible, and I'm literally pulling my shoulder back until it won't go anymore. Okay? If there's still room and he's not tapping, that's when I grab the bottom of my hand and now I hit it. I'm using like a centimeter of pressure. Okay? Any questions on this whatsoever? No? Okay, awesome. So we're gonna do one more move from the straight Ashi Garami position, and then we're gonna move into cross Ashi, and then the length left. Okay? Now, when I refer to straight Ashi Garami, what I mean is that any technique where my opponent's foot is outside of my hip, it's going to be a straight Ashi Garami, straight line. When the foot crosses over my hip line, now it's a cross Ashi. The difference there is we've got a straight ankle lock and an outside heel hook, which we'll be talking about next. With the cross Ashi, we have a cross Achilles lock, which we'll be talking about, and of course the inside heel hook. The inside heel hook and the outside heel hook are arguably the two most devastating submissions in all of jiu-jitsu. So as we go into this next part, I want you to treat it with a lot of respect, have a lot of respect for your partner. These moves, we're teaching them more as education, not so that you can go into the gym tomorrow and start ripping everybody's legs off. Here's another thing, if you struggled with the first move, right, and you're uncomfortable with the second one, stick to mastering the straight ankle lock first, right? Again, we want to keep this quite economical as a seminar. So if the outside heel hook just seems too complex, stick to the first techniques we did, the sweep and the straight ankle lock. That being said, let's get into the outside heel hook. Okay. So we're going to set this up the same way as the first one. Riley steps in, I get my shin to shin, pull him forward, grip that second leg, I come up, but something's going to happen this time around. Okay. Once I have that initial bite, Riley starts stepping back. This can happen quite often, where even if I miss the foot, I can't reach it. There's things I can do to get it back, which we're going to talk about later on. But in this case, I can't reach it. It's going to be difficult for me to sweep him now. So if Riley stays nice and balanced, it's tough. And I'm going to sacrifice, my own balance, and he's probably going to start breaking open the structure of my Ashi. Okay? So what we're going to do instead is we're going to use Riley's positioning against him. What I'm going to do is start tilting my legs, treating his thigh almost as we would an omoplata. When we do an omoplata, right, come down on your knees. When we think about an omoplata, we're almost bringing the leg across, right, like that. We're going to use that same motion on his leg. So you step back, I can't sweep him. I start to bring the leg across his center line. I can use a foot assistance here. Notice my leg, I drew my knee to my chest, and I can push against his opposite knee, and I start creating rotation. Something that I do not want to do here is immediately triangle my legs, okay? If I do that, Riley can start pushing against my foot here and clearing his knee like that, exactly. If that happens, I'm screwed. Very much like an arm bar, where if I lose the elbow, I lose the arm bar. If I lose his knee line, I've lost the submission, I've lost the leg lock. Okay. So as I'm here, I start to turn and rotate, I push against his knee, and I'm thinking about putting both feet onto his far hip. Now what happens here is that creates exposure of his heel, and I'm just gonna use a false grip here. I'm gonna use the blade of my wrist underneath his heel and treat it like I'm checking the time. I'm checking my watch here. Notice I'm not gripping my hands together. I'm not looking for the submission yet. I could start looking for it, but the most common reaction, which we're gonna preemptively solve for, is the shared spiral here, where Riley understands his leg is in danger, and to fight against that, he's gonna start rolling through. Okay, we're gonna do that in slow motion. as we rolled through, I rolled with Riley, and I kept that knee line intact the whole time. Once I end up in this outside Ashi position, I can triangle my legs together, back heel, and now I'm getting ready to start attack the outside heel hook. We're going to talk about the submission later. Just want to get this initial motion first. Be careful with this one, because if you're doing it right, just the one-handed grip is going to put pressure on the leg. Okay, so he steps in. Let's do that one more time, slow motion. That was probably a little too fast. Slow down here, sorry. So here, I bring this across, I get the bite. Now as we roll, I keep my hips glued. See how I pop up onto my forearm, rotate. If I start losing the knee line, I'll just bring my hips towards Riley's hips. Now we roll through using that hand assist the whole time. I end up outside Ashi. And I can look for the finish. Don't do that yet, okay? Just this position. Riley, is there pressure on that foot?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's tight. I haven't done anything yet. The outside heel hook puts a lot of pressure on the ankle and the outside of the knee, okay, which is why it's so devastating. So please, please, please be very, very careful. As the partner rolling through, if you feel pressure, tap out, say to your partner, tap, tap, and immediately let go. That's why we're not using two hands yet, okay? You guys want to see this one more time? One more time? Yeah? Okay. So he steps in, hold him forward. He steps back. Now in slow motion, we start going 2 feet to the opposite hip. We create that heel exposure. As we start to roll, I'm up on my forearm and my elbow, and my hips back. I keep that knee line intact the whole time. Roll all the way through, triangle my legs. We'll end up here. Any questions, guys? Okay, I'll come around and help you with this one. One more time, 2 things. Number 1, safety. Please, you don't want anyone getting injured. Second, if you're struggling with this, just stick with the first technique. Okay, nothing wrong with it. It's an awesome, awesome move. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's show the outside to the outside. So, let's go from this position. I've got my Ashi Garami, he steps back, right? I bring the leg out, I go 2 feet over the hip. Again, we explained, good question from Jen. Why do we bring it out? Because it allows us to lock up that triangle, which is a tighter wedge. So as I rotate through here, I get the watch grip, okay, that false grip. I think of it like, hey, I'm checking my Rolex here. If I grip behind my elbow, okay, and it slips, I got nothing. But if I grip and it starts to slip, now I have the extra. So I've almost got 2 grips here that I can use. Check with the Rolex. If it slips, I've got it behind my elbow, okay? We roll through. Bring my hips back, okay? I'm always positioned before submission, okay? So what's wrong with this? I've got an open wedge. Triangle my legs. Now there's a question here. Why do I triangle my legs this way as opposed to like this? Well, I'm giving him an ankle here. So if Riley is very flexible, I've been tapped before, believe it or not. Okay? It's very embarrassing. So I stay here, right? Keep it nice and tight, back heeling. This feels pretty tight on his ankle right now. Okay, so for the actual finish, we end up in this position. I treat it very similar to the straight ankle lock. Okay, I'm going to use this free hand and start peeling this down, and I'm thinking about doing a side crouch. Okay, so I don't bring my shoulder all the way down. I actually bring it kind of in line. I don't peel it as far back as with the straight ankle lock, but it's still, everything feels pretty compressed. I can feel his pinky toe right up in my armpit here. From here, I have this compressed. My hand comes in with a gable grip, and I tight everything nice and tight. So again, similar to the straight ankle lock, I'm thinking about drawing my hands or my grip up towards my chest. Once I have everything tight here, I back heel. He's already getting ready to tap. I back heel, everything's compressed, and now without moving my grip, I start drawing my hips in towards Riley's knee here. And he taps. Okay? I'm not thinking about rotating it through. A lot of people think a heel hook is about doing this. That's not what I'm doing. See how he rolls with me? I'm isolating his knee and his hip, and then I'm drawing my hips up. Okay? So that kind of leads to the second. If you're over rolling here, and you end up rolling this way, it's like, what do? Triangle your legs, back heel, so this, okay? Same thing, I compress everything together, get that grip, hike it up towards my chest, and then I lift with my hips. Okay? Feel it. Perfect. Okay? So outside heel hooks, you're gonna get a lot of pressure in the ankle, some on the outside of the knee, depending on where it's positioned. Okay? Inside heel hook is gonna be inside of the knee. Okay? But it should feel like this is actually gonna create breakage. So if the straight ankle lock is all about pressure, okay? The outside heel hook is actually gonna do some serious breaking damage. Okay? Let's move this way, show it one more time. So the whole move, and hold it forward, he steps back, I come this way. I'll go in slow motion now, okay? So I've got that watch grip, I fall back, triangle my legs, back heel, I check, position before submission. Hips are over his knee line, very good. Compressing everything, back heeling. Now I do my side crunch, grip my hands together, bring everything up towards my chest, and then I lift with my hips in towards his knee. I get the finish, okay? If you're talking this, go nice and slow. Person that is on bottom, okay? If you don't feel anything, right? Like, hey, you're super flexible, right? If it feels like it's getting to a point where you probably should be tapping, just be safe and tap. Reason for that is if you have flexibility of your ligaments and whatnot in your knee, they act differently from your other joints. There's not as many nerves. So you may not get as much of a warning from your body that something could be ready to break. So please just be careful with this. If you are struggling from this side to get it, you can tilt yourself, right? And then get the finish from here. And it's the same thing. Pinch, side crunch, and then I lift with my hips, and I do the tap, okay? So you can hit it on both sides. I just prefer this one, because it's harder to defend. He starts reaching up, trying to break that grip, like it's over, okay? You can try and peel it. I still got a free hand here, but this is pretty tight. Any questions? No? Okay. Let's give it a shot. I don't want to spend too much time on this one, because you probably won't be actively using it as much as the straight ankle lock. But it's still a great submission. Okay, so let's try this out. 1, 2, 3. Perfect, right? So, so we talked about the straight Ashi Garami. When my opponent's ankle is on the outside of my hip. Now we're gonna get into the cross Ashi. Okay? We go a little bit over time. Is that okay? Or does anybody have a harder stop at 30? No? Good, awesome. Okay. So we're gonna start dealing with situations where opponent's ankle or their leg is across my hip line. Okay? We're gonna start with a really easy one. We're gonna use what's called a back step Kani Basami. So a Kani Basami in Japanese is a scissor attack, right? So when you see those, crazy butterfly submissions where they're cutting through, we're gonna use that concept to enter into that cross Ashi position. But we're gonna do it from standing, so it's very safe, and we can get a basic understanding of this position, okay? So remember that first move where I stepped in and Riley started going into shin to shin? We're gonna use that idea, but instead this time, my partner's not gonna go shin to shin. So I'm gonna step into inside position. occupying and controlling the space between my opponent's legs. Now, I'm gonna grab a collar tie on the back of Riley's neck, and then my free hand is gonna reach and grab a scoop grip underneath his knee. I call it a scoop grip because I treat my arm like a shovel. Okay? So I grip with the collar tie, scoop, and now I'm gonna turn my body 90 degrees as I backstep and pivot here. Okay? This knee now is gonna pinch in, and I think about treating this position like that initial Ashi Garami. Notice how my heel and my knee are glued, and they create a nice little wedge here. Okay, so I end up in this position. Instead of just falling back, you want to maximize that control. Double trouble. You always want to control two legs at once. So I'm going to let go of that collar tie, grip just below and just above Riley's knee, and start peeling his leg up, getting a guillotine grip underneath his calf. Now I can safely start to sit back onto my outside head. I triangle my legs together, and now I've got that leg lace Ashi. This is the creme de la creme, the filet mignon of leg lock position. Okay? This is where I want to finish. I've got that triangle leg, Japanese is sakaku, right? Lock. You hear that from some different videos, which is controlling the primary leg. The secondary leg has this sort of guillotine / shotgun grip, okay, which is controlling him on the far side. So if he tries to turn out now or spin or do anything, it's really difficult. It's easy for me to sit him back down and break him down. Okay. To finish a submission, we're going to keep it really basic and easy. This hand is just going to slip through both legs, and I'm going to collect his ankle behind my elbow. Okay. My free hand is going to go elbow to elbow, and now I go foot to foot. To finish the submission, I just squeeze and drive with my cross. And I get a nice quick submission. Okay. This is just a nice, basic kind of leg lock. It's nothing too devastating. It's a lot of pressure between my partner's shins. Okay. But it's just a nice simple one to get on the position. So I step in, collar tie, scoop grip, back step, wedge. Okay? I collect that second leg, start pulling it up, fall back on my outside. Triangle my legs together, nice and tight. Okay? You guys want to come up and around, you want to see this in a little more detail. This is the position. To finish, okay? See this guillotine grip I've got here? I just reach through, so I'm collecting both legs, and I cup his ankle here behind my elbow. I can go anywhere. I like it now with the elbow, it's a little bit tighter, but we're going to show. Foot here. Pinch my knees, he's already done. If I want to get a little bit more pressure, okay, I can drive my hips and pinch my knees. Be a little bit careful for the men in the room. Check that triangle, so you're not going through your partner's balls. Okay? Be kind. Next position. You guys want to see it one more time? So I step into the inside position. Collar tie, scoop grip, give it 90 degrees, and I get that nice pinch, that wedge. I reach over, above and below the knee, collect that second leg, all back. I triangle my legs, and I've got the leg lace Ashi Garami. Cross Ashi with a secondary leg. If I need to, I can use a hand assist, hold his leg in towards me, reach through, not reaching behind this one. Already got it scooped. I just need to collect that second leg. Pull in his ankle behind my elbow, elbow to elbow, foot to foot, pinch knees, and drive with your hips. Any questions?
Is that considered a repeat?
Depends on how you get the grip. The way we grip, I believe, is actually safe. Don't quote me on that. Because we use the back step, we actually didn't cross the knee line. Right? So when I'm here, I'm I'm not actually, I think it's not it won't be a reap until I actually get a grip over the primary. It's because I'm attacking this one.
It's still legal, right? Which is
It's illegal?
illegal. You can attack the far one, but you can't attack the one you're controlling.
So where's your
So you can attack that one you have. Right?
So as soon as
As soon as you touch that, it's illegal. Yeah.
So I could technically, I guess, attack this.
Yeah.
There's another submission there. We're not gonna worry about that one.
You
Hey.
can go for that angle, like on his right leg.
What's that?
You can attack like his right leg.
This is also a great position for sweeping, right? So if I get the sweep, I can come up, start coming right? But, story for another day. Any other questions?
Yeah, can we show what his hands are supposed to be doing in the position? Like, how is he supposed to be defending?
We're going to talk about defense later on. Yeah, I'll be talking to you specific concepts about that. Any other questions? Okay, let's give it a shot. 1, 2, 3. So I have really good questions with this one. Let's just start. So I step in, collar tie, scoop. I get the pinch. I start to collect the second leg. Pull it up in towards me. I sit back. My legs, I'm in the leg legs. Okay. Now the questions I got were everything from I feel it in different areas of the leg to why go for this, right? The reason I like to attack this, it's not the most devastating leg lock in the world. Okay? I'm putting pressure almost against his two shins here. And that's not going to create a lot of breakage, it creates pressure and pain. The reason I do it though is because it's free. It doesn't cost me anything. Okay? There's very few things in life that where you can get a free lunch. And this is one of them. It's a free lunch. Anytime I go for this attack, okay, I still maintain double trouble the whole time. So it's not like I have to release one of his legs. In fact, I would even argue that going for the submission almost enhances my control a little bit. If I just pull Riley here, Riley, go ahead and see it. Do anything. I still have both legs. Whereas if I had to go for the heel hook, I have to start releasing, okay, and that's his opportunity to escape. We're going to talk about this one next. But again, not designed to be the most devastating attack, but it's free. Another thing here to keep in mind, my gripping sequence. Okay? And you can use this for anything in jiu-jitsu. Tight, tighter, tightest. When I'm using grips in jiu-jitsu, proximity of my elbows towards each other determines how tight the grip. So when you think about a rear naked choke, right, from behind Riley, you see MMA fighters do this, right? Why? Because of their gloves, right? And it's difficult. But if I was to use this to finish versus a butterfly or a wrist to wrist grip versus elbow to elbow, right? Obviously elbow to elbow, there's less space. Circumference shrinks each time. So that's why when we attack the submission, we go elbow to elbow. We have to redo this. Any other questions on the initial leg raise position or the cross close?
Stuff you were just thinking of, is that more of a
You mean the one that we just everybody practiced?
yeah, is that like more of a knee guard or
It's more just creating pressure between the shins. People will feel it differently, right? Shin is quite feeling it differently, feeling it one way. But really it should, where most people feel it, guys, look, it's driving his own shin behind his own calf. And that's it. In competition, I'll be honest, this is not going to usually finish someone in the heat of the moment. You got adrenaline running through their system, right? But again, it's free. Try it. There's not a lot of risk. It's not like sitting back into an arm bar where if you fail the attempt, you know, your partner comes up and sits up with you. It's a free lunch, so why not? Any other questions? Okay, awesome. So we're going to go into sort of the last / second last technique here, which is getting into the cross Ashi, that same position, but from that original shin to shin that we talked about. And then just to touch things up, we're gonna go into the inside. Okay? So, Riley's standing in front of me. We're gonna go back to this position. Step to the inside position. Cut behind the calf, scoop back, shin to shin, pull him forward. Grip that second leg, and once again, he pulls his leg back. Okay? So instead, the first time we did this, we talked about going hip to hip and creating rotation. This time what we're gonna do is we're gonna use what's called a tsunegeshi in Japanese to actually kick Riley back to collect that second leg again, okay? So when I have this position, I'm gonna put this foot down on the mat, and then I'm gonna use a switch of my shoelaces towards the near side butt, and I'm gonna kick Riley forward, like that, okay? Now normally what this sets up for most gi players is they're gonna go perpendicular to their opponent and they go into X-leg. Great option, right? There's a lot of things we could do here to start driving, sweeping, getting into top position. What we're gonna do is use what's called a false X position. So it's an X guard, but we're gonna switch the positioning of our legs, keep it higher towards the butt. So I've got my Ashi, he steps back, tsunegeshi, and what I do is instead of going for X guard, this leg is just gonna come underneath the butt, and then this leg is gonna cross underneath of it. So X guard would be like this, false X, I'm here. Notice my bottom leg doesn't hang out because there's no pocket behind the knee for my leg to hang out. So I keep everything nice and high up towards his hip. And I've got this nice false X grip here, okay? Notice as well that my body is positioned quite perpendicular to Riley, which is exactly what I want. His hands are on the mat. We have Kazushi. And I can keep a cross ring in front of me. To finish the sweep, what we're gonna do is drive our legs up, pull our knees to our chest in a power curve, and then we're gonna be able to kick our legs through and get into that leg lace position. So I extend, pull my knees towards my chest, you grip that second leg, I kick through, triangle, check this out. Drive forward, and we end up in that leg lace position, just turn this way. We end up in that same position, okay? So, from top position, right? I'll just set up right. We were stepping in, coming here, getting in position. From bottom, once you get it, it's awesome. I think we are filming. Yeah, let's keep going. Yeah. Steps in, scoop back, shin to shin, just as we've been practicing all day. Pull him forward, lift, he pulls that leg back, okay? I could start rotating into the inside Ashi. Instead, I put my foot down, tsunegeshi, or corner throw in Japanese. Okay, I launch him. Now that allows me the space to go perpendicular, and I get my legs in, false X, okay? Notice my legs are not just crisscross, they're high up towards his hip. They don't hang out down here, up high, tight. Now I draw my knees towards my chest, elevate, collect that second leg, kick through, down. In that same position. One more time. Questions? Anybody want to see that one more time? Yes? Yes. Okay. feels good. Okay. Once we get here, we'll do this for a few minutes. And we'll talk about the inside fill up. And give us a little bit of extra time if we're okay to go half an hour over. Show you guys some defense. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Let's talk about the inside fill up. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Most devastating leg lock in all jiu-jitsu. Again, safety first. We're doing this for educational purposes. Please don't go in tomorrow and be like, got a tap on the way. Obviously, it's illegal. Most tournaments are at GPF, but we're going to show it to you anyways. I'm also not going to show the defense, the inside fill up. It's a topic for another day, right? I'm going to show defense as two stations that I showed. Training a lot in the outside fill up position from inside Ashi. Really, just for now, inside fill up. Think of it like a triangle in the sense that people always ask, caught in a triangle, what's my defense? You should have been caught there in the first place, right? Just tap out, okay? Defense to an inside fill up, tap out. If you're not trained and you know what you're doing, this can be very devastating. Okay? We'll just go right into the position here. The back step. So we ended up in the leg lace. Right? If you guys want to come around a little bit closer if you want. Okay. So we're in the leg lace. Okay. What I want to do to finish the inside fill up is, if we remember the outside fill up, we were falling to the outside and using that to put pressure on the outside of the knee. The inside fill up works opposite. Okay? I want to fall on the inside, which then puts pressure on the inside of the knee. Okay? You're going to feel there's probably going to be a lot less ankle, a lot less pressure on the ankle, right? And you feel like you should be putting directly on the knee. Okay? From this position, the key thing here is I need a very specific controlled release of this second leg. If I just go ahead and let go of this leg and start working towards my elbow, Riley can start defending, right? And that's usually his ticket out, right? Especially if he starts using what's called a ballerina foot, right? Instead of bending his foot to hide his heel, it can be very, very tricky to get the finish. So I have to make sure that I still control this secondary leg at all times, and I'm releasing it at the appropriate time. First thing I like to do, obviously we hit it on the outside, but I want to move towards the inside. So I use this body start pushing my elbow, push off, and I start rotating towards the opposite side. You can keep your legs triangular, okay? If you feel comfortable rotating over your own foot, you can do that. What I prefer to do, which makes a little bit of a tighter bite, is I'll actually switch foot to foot, okay? Similar to what we did with the lace attack when we were here. I'm going foot to foot, or even think about going heel to heel. It just puts a nice bite on this whole position. Okay? As I fall towards my inside now, I'm making sure the whole time that I'm constantly putting pressure back in towards his hips. And notice my knee is flared this way. I don't think about creating a shallow knee, reaching my legs together. It's extended out towards it. This gives me full control over the knee. And if you also notice, my hips are directly in line with Riley's knee. This is what's going to create, it's a little weird, I know, that's what's going to create the pressure and the edge of the finish. Okay. So, legs are triangles on the outside. I go heel to heel, chin, all towards my inside hip, lowering my knee towards the left knee. Now, this is where we get into the controlled release. I'm going to take my free hand, reach through, and cup his heel. Now I can start to release his leg, and I literally put his big toe inside my leg. And then I same thing, check the Rolex. I put the Rolex right underneath Riley's ankle. Okay? I'm constantly checking my position. Things loosen at all. Always getting it nice and tight, making sure my my hips are underneath Riley's knee. Okay. Very similar to how we finished the outside heel hook. I'm going just grip my hands together and I'm gonna collapse my weight like I'm doing a side crunch. Side crunch, grip the hands, and now I just drive my hips in towards the knee. Okay, this is very, very important. All of the breakage should be okay, so I get in, one more time. Legs are triangle, heel to heel. Rotate towards the inside hip, keeping everything flared out. I reach through, cup his heel, get the big toe up into my armpit. I recheck my position. Relax, cable grip, side crunch, and now I drive my hips. Any questions?
Does you need to be bent in the knee, or it can be relatively straight?
And be both. I think you're going to get bent naturally. If he completely straightens it, like I can still finish it. More bend really makes a difference. It's just because how bad it is. You're naturally going to start to straighten it, and it's more like bending it through the floor. That's kind of the motion.
Can you do it without releasing the lace?
Yes.
Very nice control there. If you don't want to let go of that leg, can you do it?
Yes. So the competition I was last at, what happened stand up to me is the guy ended up like this, and he threaded this knee in, and I took him and I launched, cleared this. Oh my God, this is on camera. This is okay. And I threaded him this way, and right away I just fell back, and I finished right here. So I don't always need the secondary leg. It's just more control.
No, I meant that's what, when you have the legs, like finish the heel hook without letting go of that leg.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, because
Sorry about
I wouldn't
that.
want to lose control of that leg.
So if we're here, it's going to be tough because his own shin is in the way. Yeah, I need this freed, so I've got full pressure on the knee here. Otherwise, it's just going to be like the first submission. Any other questions? Okay, we're going to keep this one short, like 5 minutes, and then we'll talk about the defenses all in one, and we'll just give you like 10 minutes to experiment with that. All right, 1, 2, 3. So the last thing we're going to talk about, leg lock defense, and we're running out of time here, so I'm just going to put all 3 techniques together. 2 are going to be straight ankle lock defenses, and then for the advanced folks in the room that want to try this out, I brought a back take for you where you can try out. So the first one that we're going to do is from our standard Ashi position. So Riley has got me into the Ashi position. This is what I posted on my Instagram, so if you've seen this, you're probably familiar with it, okay? First thing I need to do when I'm applying this Ashi is to boot up. I think about putting a boot on and pulling my toes towards my knee. That's when I'm defending a straight ankle. If I'm defending a curl hook, I actually want to curl my toes, much like a ballerina. But in this case, he's going for that straight ankle lock. So I boot up and I straighten my leg, okay? Now I could start fighting this grip here, but we know that there's an obvious counter. So instead what I'm going to do is turn my hips away from Riley, and I think about getting my heel onto the mat, and I start to bring my knee back, okay? So I end up in this sort of parallel position where I'm on one knee, and my heel is glued to the mat to protect it, okay? From this position, I'm safe from the straight ankle lock. You could start going for rotations here. We're not going to talk about that yet. I'm going to now stand up. Again, stay parallel to Riley. Don't want my foot here. Start gripping it very soon. So I keep this back at all times. Once I've gotten here, I need to break the structure of his leg. So I'm going to put pressure here. One hand over top of the shin. The other hand is going to grab his butt end. From here, it's very easy to put pressure down and simply push his foot off my hip. I keep the pressure down on the shin, because if I don't do that, sugation, I'm going to get locked back up. So that's why I keep the pressure down low here, balance. So if he goes for sugation, I can stop it. Now, the best way to defend leg locks is to eliminate inside control. Okay? So I'm gonna back step, and I'm gonna get to a flanking position. Once I am perpendicular to Riley, he no longer has any form of an inside position. Okay? So even if it starts to re-guard or something like that, I can back away and I'm safe. Ideally, I can take my belly, mount, side control, but the key thing is my leg is safe. Okay? So one more time. Right here, locked up tight, my boot gives me just a couple of seconds. Okay? Boot up nice and tight. I rotate away, I draw my knee back, and I start to heist. Staying parallel. Now I can stand up, put that pressure down on the shin so he doesn't immediately wander throw me that way. And put pressure on the bunion. Push everything down. That allows me to now back step and get into a flanking position. I'm going to jump into the second one, which is very similar, and you guys can play around with the first one. The risk, obviously, with the offense from Ashi Garami is that if Riley preemptively throws this leg over top, he now has an outside Ashi position. It becomes very difficult to now break the structure. Okay? Obviously, I can't jump over this way, and if we stand up, right, and I start getting here, this over. It's probably going to be a break this week. Okay? So what we're going to do is from this position is very, very similar, which is why we're tying these two defenses together. Is I'm going to rotate away, heist onto one knee, and now I start driving my hips in towards Riley, keeping everything nice and tight on one knee. I like to grab the back of his neck here with the collar top. And what I think about doing is sprawling my weight back, like drawing my knee to the mat. Here. He still has an outside option, but I'm in good control here. I pretty much have a win. I just sprawl my hips heavy. Get out of the way, Bob. I sprawl my weight heavy, and I can simply pass the legs into the top. One more time. Bob's not in the way this time. Use an outside option. Rotate away onto one knee. Stay here. I can drive my hips in nice and tight. Grab the collar tie. Start to bring my knee to the mat and sprawl my hips back. That allows me to pass the legs and into a top pivot. Any questions? Okay. Let's try this out. 1, 2, 3. 5 minutes, guys, and then I'll come around and we'll quickly show the last move. And if there's time, we'll. Okay, so last technique we're going to show defense from the standing position again. Okay, so what we're going to do is Riley's got me in that strong position. Okay. Bottom to here again. And we're going to go, remember when you guys went for the read, right? So rather go ahead and go this way, right? We went to this position. This can be really tricky because if I'm not freeing my knee line, getting this out in time, he's got that initial fight really tight. He either finishes me here or we rotate through, okay? And then he finishes me from outside Ashi. So what we're actually going to do is show you how to take this back from this position. It's actually easier than you think. We're going to use the cross body ride or the truck position, very much like how you would rotate through to an neutral or back. Okay? So Riley is going to go ahead and cut through. Okay. Now this is what's absolutely key. From this position, if I'm not careful, Riley's going to be able to capture my knee line and then I've lost. The key to success here is freeing my knee line, essentially getting my knee over his hip here. What I do is I use a hand assist over his ankle to help me beat him to the punch and kick that through. Okay? If I push against Riley's knee here, it's a lot stronger, right? So if he goes and turns through, I can't do anything. But when I push the end of the lever, look how I can push that and I get through. Okay? The key here is getting my knee line over his hip. Now I could probably use this and just start escaping and turning around, but I don't want to risk that. I want to be a little bit careful. So he goes for the reach. I push at the end of his ankle here, slip the knee line and through. Now to get the actual back take, I'm gonna put pressure on his ankles and I'm gonna back step. Same way we did that back step Kani Basami. Back step and pinch my legs to create a wedge. I'm in this position. Now, I'm gonna frame and rotate over my left shoulder. Like this. Just like the truck position, what I want to do here is keep my feet together, draw, back heel, draw my heels towards my butt, and I'm thinking about stomping my legs down. Like this. See how he gives up his back? Now, there's a number of ways I can actually take the back from here. What I like is to sit up, and I hook behind his shoulder, and I see this leg here. This turns and becomes my first hook in the back take. Once I have this, it's easy for me to crawl my way up. I take that second hook, pull Riley in. So this is a very, very advanced move. Very useful though. This is how you start to reverse the leg positions on people, right? First time, like Felipe Pena and Gordon Ryan, is variation. So from here, you start to cut the cross. Hands, stiff arms to the ankle. Free that knee line. Sitting my ass down over his legs. Okay? Put pressure down. Back step. And wedge. Now I rotate over my shoulder. Feet together. And I stomp hard. Here. Presents the back. I sit up. I let the hook behind his shoulder. My feet or my legs switch directions. Okay? I put that second hook in, all up the back. I pull Riley towards me, and I like to follow this underneath side. I can start working the back side here. One more time. Guys. What we're going to do from here, I'm going to end the seminar. If you want to stay and rep this out, by all means, you're free to. Mark's here, so you can stay as long as he's here. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys being here. Let everyone know how much money we collected, but thank you so much. Thank you, Riley, practicing with me the past few weeks. Liam with the camera, and obviously Jesse, guys. He's a great coach. So,